Welcome students. In our previous class, we studied 4 methods of collection of primary data. Now we will continue with the next methods of collection of primary data. Now the next method is information through questionnaire and schedule. Now first we will discuss about questionnaire. Questionnaire method is also called mailing method. In this, a questionnaire prepared according to the objective of the study is mailed to the informants with the request to answer and return within a specified time period. An assurance is given that the answers will be confidential. So, questionnaire method. In that method, an investigator sent questionnaire to the informants through mail. Then informants have to fill the whole questionnaire and return that questionnaire back to the investigator. This is known as questionnaire method. If in simple terms, I will explain questionnaire method. So the questionnaire method is the same as like if you want to take admission in any school or in any college, then in that case you have to fill one admission form. So this is same as questionnaire. That admission form, definitely it is not mailed to you, but it is same as questionnaire because sets of questions are there. You have to fill the whole questions and then return it back to the school or college. So this is same as questionnaire. And suitability of this method, it covers wide area because in that case I can mail as much as questionnaire to different people and then collect information from that people. Informants are literate and educated because they have to fill the answers. So in that case they must be educated and literate. Original first hand data are required because the questionnaire is filled by the informants for the first time. So that is first hand data, and then questionnaire must be filled. So informants have to give all the information according to that questionnaire. Same, the merits are also there. The method is economical because it saves time, money, efforts, because this is simple method. It covers wide area, so it is economical, wide area. Data are original and reliable because we get first hand data, so data are original, reliable, and it is free from bias because informants have to give the answers according to the questionnaire, so there is no chance of biasedness. But again, the demerits, it shows lack of interest among informants. Sometimes informants are like not, they are not showing any interest to fill the whole questionnaire. So in that case, there is lack of interest. It is useful only when informants are educated. This is the most important feature. If the informants are illiterate or uneducated, then in that case it is very difficult to fill the questionnaire. If informants may not understand the question, then there is a possibility of wrong conclusion, definitely, because informants are not able to read the question or to give correct answer. So in that case wrong conclusions will be drawn, and this method is not flexible because questionnaire have the sets of question. So sets of question, whatever is written on that questionnaire, then informants have to give the answer. So this is not adjustable because they are not changed the question according to their convenience. So in that case the method is not flexible. Now the next is schedule or enumerators method. In this method, trained enumerators record answers from informants. The enumerator himself asks questions which are called schedule. He himself fills the questionnaire. So in that case, enumerator or investigator, he only asks the question from the informants. Informants have to give answer, but they will not fill the questionnaire. The only job is that they have to give the answer, and then the questionnaire is filled by the enumerator only. So this is known as schedule method. Like if I give you simple example of schedule, that is your attendance register. In that, class teacher is the enumerator and you are the informants. When he or she will take attendance, then you have to say present or absent. So, she will ask a question, then she or he is the enumerator. You have to say yes or no, then you are the investigators. But yes or no is written by the teacher only. So, that is, he himself fills the questionnaire, that means schedule. So in that case, the schedule is same as your attendance register. In that, enumerator asks question to the informants. Informants have to give the answer, but the schedule is filled by the enumerator only. Okay, so this is schedule method or enumerator's method. Now suitability, it covers wide area. Trained enumerators are required because he has to ask a question, he has to fill the whole questionnaire. So in that case, he or she will be trained persons and personal context will be there, because enumerator or investigator collects answer from the informant. So there is direct personal contact between both of them. Again, merits, wide area, accurate and reliable answers, personal contact, and complete information. So informations are collected by the investigator and then he fills the schedule. So in that case, he collect all the information according to the sets of question. Now the demerits are, this method is costly in terms of time, money and efforts, because investigator has to go to informants, then collect the information, then he fills the questionnaire. So definitely it will take time, it will take money, it will take efforts. Personal bias is also there, because if the informants are not able to give any answer, then in that case sometimes investigator he himself fill the answers. So personal bias is also there, and non-availability of trained enumerators. If the enumerators are not trained, in that case how can he solve the problem, how can he ask the question from the informants, and then it is very difficult to collect data from the informants. Now if I ask, between questionnaire and schedule, which method do you think is the best or is the good method? In my opinion, or schedule is good method between questionnaire and schedule method, because there are two reasons. First, to fill questionnaire, in that case the informants must be educated or literate. But in case of schedule method, if the informants are not literate, if they are not educated, in that case there is not so much difficult, because the questionnaire is filled by the investigator. So if the informants are uneducated, then in that case there is not a big problem. Second thing, under questionnaire is filled by the informants, but informants, if they are not able to give any answer or if they are not able to understand any question, then in that case questionnaire may remain unfilled. But in case of schedule, questions asked by the investigator and questionnaire is filled by the investigator. Informants have to give answers only. So if informants are not able to give answer, or if they are not able to understand, then in that case investigator asks that question in different way. In that way by which informants are able to understand, and then investigator collects the information and then he filled the whole questionnaire. So in that case questionnaire is completely filled. So between schedule and questionnaire method, schedule method is good. So this is all about the methods of collection of primary data. Now we will come to methods of collection of secondary data. Earlier we studied under secondary data there are two sources. Number one, published sources, and number two, unpublished sources. Now we come to published sources. Published sources are: number one, government publication. When publication done by government organization and department like Economic Survey, Indian Statistics, Reserve Bank of India Bulletin, etc. So these are the government publication. Government publish all these things annually, and then all these books annually, and then we can collect data from these books. So because government is collecting the whole data and we are only using these data, so these data are known as secondary data. Semi-government publication: when municipalities and metropolitan councils publish information regarding health, birth, death, education. So in that case, again, we can take data from these publications. Then report of committees and commissions like Planning Commission, Ragarajan Committee report, etc. So as you all know, we are in India, we are having different types of committees, different commissions like Planning Commission, Finance Commission, etc. And the report of these commission and committees are published by the government only, and then if we need any data, then we will take data from these publications. Planning Commission: earlier Planning Commission was set up in India in the year 1950, but now it is known as Niti Aayog. From January 2015, Planning Commission is known as Niti Aayog, NITI, Niti Aayog. Now the next is publication of international organizations like IMF, International Monetary Fund, UNO, United Nations Organization, ILO, International Labour Organizations, etc. So they publish their reports, and then if we want any data, then we can collect data from that reports. Publication of research institutions: there are a large number of organizations doing research on various subjects. They publish their report time to time. So if we want any data, then we can collect also data from these reports. Journals: from newspapers, annual reports of trade institutions, etc. So we can collect data from these different published sources. The government institution, government department, semi-government department, research institutes, trade associations, international organizations, they can collect the data and then they publish their report time to time. And if we want any data, then in that case we can collect the data, we can use the data from their reports. So we are only using that data, we are not collecting the data, we are only using that data. So that's why these data are known as secondary data. Now, unpublished source. Unpublished sources means when the data are collected but they are not published. That is known as unpublished sources. Like your school attendance register. Your school attendance register is definitely a school record, but it is not published in newspaper. Okay, your attendance is not published in any newspaper. Okay, in that month you are present for 20 days and you are absent for 10 days. So it is not published in any newspaper. So that is unpublished data. So school attendance, that is, they have to keep attendance register for their own record, for their own use, but these data are not published anywhere. So sometimes research scholars, university, trade institution collect data but do not publish it. Such data are generally for self-use or office records. These can be used as secondary data. So I think it is clear. Like when different organization, different department or school or college, they collect data but they keep with them only. So these data are not published in any newspaper, in any journal. So these data are known as unpublished sources. There are two important sources of secondary data. The first is Census of India. Census of India, as you all know, Census of India is published by government after every 10 years. It was first published in the year 1881, and after that, after every 10 years, Government of India published Census of India. Census of India, it is all about the demographic transition of our country, like population growth rate, male population, female population, then literacy rate, sex ratio, population density. So it is all about related to demographic transition, and then the data are collected by the government and then it is published by the government. If we want any data, then we can use all these from Census of India. Now the second is National Sample Survey Organization, that is NSSO. Again, it is an organization that collect data except human being, like they collect data, livestock data or household data or number of houses, number of localities. So they collect data. So these data are secondary data because they organizations or government bodies, they collect the data, and if we want any data, then we can use these data. So these are known as secondary data. But while using secondary data, there are some limitations and precautions. So the limitations of secondary data, these may not have been collected by proper statistical techniques. Sometimes the techniques are not proper of collection of data, may not be suitable for the concerned inquiry. If we need data but data are not available, so sometimes they are not related to us, may not relate to the present time. Sometimes the data, like if I want Census of India and Census of India 2011 is available, but now we are running in 2020, so many data are changed now in that 9 years. So right now it is not related with the present scenario and may be biased, and hence sometimes the data are not reliable. Now, precautions in the use of secondary data. There are precautions also. The data should be used only if these are collected by reliable agency. Data should be suitable for further use. Method of collection data should be proper, and accuracy of data should also kept in mind. So while using secondary data, we have to keep all these precautions in our mind so that we can give a good conclusion, a proper conclusion, a precise conclusion. So this is all about methods of data collection or collection of data. So methods of data collection. I hope you understand the whole chapter. Thank you.